Hello, Disney fans! Welcome to part 2 of my review of The Princess Bride. If you haven't seen this movie yet, please either watch the movie itself or watch part 1 of this review before continuing on, because otherwise you're not going to know what's going on. If for whatever reason you haven't seen this movie yet, I highly recommend it. It's got something for everybody, whether you love romance, comedy, fantasy, sword fighting, wrestling, whatever you're into, this movie has some connection to that. And I have never heard anybody say that they dislike this movie. So, I'm not going to do a full recap of the movie up to this point because that would take forever. So, I'm just going to say at this point in the movie where we're picking up, Wesley, who is now the Dread Pirate Roberts, and his true love Buttercup have just made it through the fire swamp when they are stopped by Prince Humperdinck and Count Rugen. Buttercup sacrifices herself, saying, "Okay, I'll go with you if you let Wesley live." Honestly, you know they're not going to honor that promise, but it's the only thing she could think of on the spot to keep him alive. She's already believed he's dead once, and she's not going to go through that again. So, she makes that sacrifice and goes with Prince Humperdinck, but of course, Rugen decides, well, he didn't just decide, it was the prince's idea too, but they take Wesley to be tortured. Meanwhile, Buttercup is having nightmares about what it'll be like if she marries Prince Humperdinck.
Boo! Boo! Boo!
Why do you do this?
Because you had love in your hands and you gave it up.
But they would have killed Wesley if I hadn't done it.
Your true love lives and you marry another.
The framing device of this story is a grandfather reading the book of it to his sick grandson. And the grandson wasn't all that interested in this kind of story at first, but now he's really getting into it. And to start with, Buttercup's nightmares are presented as this actually happening, her having actually married Humperdinck. And I love how the kid's getting into it, and he's like, "Yeah, I knew she couldn't really be marrying him." And the grandfather's reaction. One of my favorite things to do with my grandpa was we would always read together, and just this exchange, it brings a smile to my face.
It was 10 days to the wedding. The king still lived, but Buttercup's nightmares were growing steadily worse.
See? Didn't I tell you she'd never marry that rotten Humperdinck?
Yes, you're very smart. Shut up.
Buttercup goes to Humperdinck and says, "I cannot marry you." She actually says she would rather die. And so Humperdinck pretends to be a nice guy and says he'll send his 4 fastest ships to go find Wesley / the Dread Pirate Roberts and bring him back. Obviously not telling the truth, and Buttercup is still falling for this, but we find out something even worse. Humperdinck is not only wanting to marry Buttercup, he's planning to kill her to start a war.
People are quite taken with her.
It's odd. But when I hired Vizzini to have her murdered on our engagement day, I thought that was clever. But it's going to be so much more moving when I strangle her on our wedding night. Once Gilda is blamed, the nation will be truly outraged. They'll demand we go to war.
Meanwhile, Wesley isn't just being tortured. He's being hooked up to an experimental machine. Which I gotta say, it's a pretty dark kind of machine. And for a fantasy movie, as dark as this is, I give it props for creativity. This machine doesn't just torture, it does something even worse.
as you know, the concept of the suction pump is centuries old. Really, that's all this is, except that instead of sucking water, I'm sucking life. I've just sucked 1 year of your life away.
I tend to way overthink things, so I'm not sure how the science behind that works. How do they know it's taking a year of his life as opposed to 5 years, as opposed to a minute? So, but I get it. It's a fantasy story, not meant to be scientific, but my mind wonders those kind of details. Still, I give him kudos for creativity. To have the idea of a life-sucking machine. I mean, I've seen other examples of this in other sci-fi kind of stories, but to work it into fantasy, yeah, I give him kudos for creativity. Well, two of the best characters in the story haven't been seen for a while, and that's Fezzik and Inigo Montoya. Now, Inigo has a problem with drinking because, well, he has a very traumatic past, and you can see why. Well, Fezzik finds him and tries to nurse him back to health and gives him the news that the six-fingered man that Inigo has been hunting has been found. Now, again, this movie has so much comedy, and the comedy isn't in the events, it's in how they happen. And it has so many little moments like this one.
And as Fezzik nursed his inebriated friend back to health, he told Inigo of Vizzini's death and the existence of Count Rugen, the six-fingered man. Considering Inigo's lifelong search, he handled the news surprisingly well.
I have to give Mandy Patinkin, who plays Inigo, major credit for acting. That eye roll, the way he flops, great acting. Perfectly comedically timed. He plays this part so well. Well, meanwhile, Buttercup finds out that Prince Humperdinck lied to her because he said he was going to send his 4 fastest ships to go bring Wesley back. And he asked her to marry him if Wesley refused to come back. Which Buttercup is smart enough to know Wesley's not going to refuse. So he gives himself away with this remark about the ships, and Buttercup picks up on that.
Tonight we marry. Tomorrow morning your men will escort us to Florin Channel, where every ship in my armada waits to accompany us on our honeymoon.
Every ship but your 4 fastest, you mean?
Buttercup tells Humperdinck it doesn't matter. Wesley's going to come for her no matter what. She really believes that. And she gives a pretty epic speech about their love.
You can't hurt me. Wesley and I are joined by the bonds of love, and you cannot track that, not with 1,000 bloodhounds, and you cannot break it, not with 1,000 swords.
Knowing that there's no way he's going to trick Buttercup anymore, and he's a little bit afraid of Wesley besides, Humperdinck decides, I'm just going to lock Buttercup up, and then I'm going to completely eliminate Wesley. Even Rugen says don't crack the machine up that much. Although I'm thinking that's just because he wants to experiment some more. But this is where any pretense of civility that Humperdinck's been holding on to goes flying out the window, and he's just going to be as evil as he can at this point.
You truly love each other, and so you might have been truly happy. Not one couple in a century has that chance, no matter what the storybooks say. So I think no man in a century will suffer as greatly as you will. Dr. 50!
While this is going on, Inigo's been trying to come up with a plan. He knows the castle's going to be well guarded, so he can't just go in there and take on Rugen. And he figures his best hope is the Man in Black, the Dread Pirate Roberts Wesley. because Wesley's beaten him and Fezzik and Vizzini, who was supposedly the cleverest guy around, but really was pretty clearly just bragging. So Inigo says, if I'm going to come up with a plot to get my revenge on the man with 6 fingers, I need the man in black. And when they hear Wesley's screams, Inigo figures that's him, because Buttercup's getting married. Obviously, he's going to be in the most pain possible just knowing that. That scream's got to come from him. But they got a crowd to get through, and like I said, one of my favorite things about this movie is the little moments. And I get a laugh out of this little moment where Fezzik just yells and the crowd just parts.
Fezzik, please.
Another of my favorite moments is shortly after this. In order to find out specifically where Wesley is, they happen to run into one of Count Rugen and Prince Humperdinck's minions, and they decide, let's find out from him, only he's not too willing to talk. That gives us another hilarious moment.
Fezzik, jog his memory.
I'm sorry, Inigo. I didn't mean to drive him so hard.
By the time the two friends reach Wesley, it's apparently too late. But Inigo has spent 20 years planning to avenge his father's murder. He's not going to just give up just because the person he needs happens to be dead. In fact, he knows a guy who can work a miracle. And I know it's just a small detail that most people probably wouldn't think twice about, but personally, I find it heartwarming how willing Fezzik is to help him. When he asks you got any money, he doesn't even hesitate like, hey, it's my money. He's like, well, yeah, I got some. Just a small detail, but I happen to love that.
The Montoyas have never taken defeat easily. Come along, Fezzik, bring the money.
The body?
Have you any money?
I have a little.
I just hope it's enough to buy a miracle.
Fezzik's size alone is a big help, and it can influence others to help when they probably wouldn't otherwise. The miracle man that Inigo wants to take Wesley to see is not exactly willing to help them. He used to work for Humperdinck and got fired, so he's not in a helping mood to work with anyone. But seeing Fezzik changes his mind at least enough to get them in the door.
We're closed. Beat it, or I'll call the Brute Squad.
I'm on the Brute Squad.
You are the Brute Squad.
This movie so perfectly blends in the comedy along with all the romance and action and the fantasy. And the comedy would not work if it did not have such a spectacular cast. Just watch the acting in this next clip while the Miracle Man is examining Wesley. Just everybody's reactions, everybody's movements, their expressions, it's all just spot on perfect to give the right comedic effect.
I've seen worse.
That line cracks me up. I've seen worse. He's dead. How much worse can you possibly get than dead? Well, this is a fantasy after all, and he is a miracle worker. And it turns out Wesley's not dead. He's only mostly dead.
Well, it just so happens that your friend here is only mostly dead. There's a big difference between mostly dead and all dead. Please open his mouth.
I really don't think when people talk about this movie, they talk about all the other characters, but they don't really talk about Miracle Max all that much. He's played by Billy Crystal, and I think he is just absolutely hilarious. There's comedy through the rest of the movie, but this is some of the best of the comedy. Just the way he goes about examining Wesley, and this whole scene where he's thinking about what kind of healing he needs, and just the way he speaks to Wesley. It's just so it's just so well performed. It's hilarious. I love every second of this. And I think when people talk about how great the cast is, they really need to give more credit to Billy Crystal playing this role.
Hey! Hello in there! Hey, what's so important? What you got here that's worth living for?
I wonder how many takes it took them to do that. Because if I were any of the other actors there, I could not have kept from cracking up. Especially Carrie Elwes, who plays Wesley and was supposed to be mostly dead, just laying there. That just goes to show how great the entire cast is. And I gotta give Carrie Elwes a lot of props for when he starts to come to again after the miracle, and just the way he moves as parts of him start to come back to life. It just I could not move that way. I could not keep a straight face acting this, and just the way he lets his head flop around. That's gotta be hard because you're gonna want to naturally control your body, especially your head. So major kudos for the acting in this movie on all their parts, and it's just so funny to watch the way he starts to regain himself again.
Now, I'll need a sword eventually.
Why? You can't even lift one.
True, but that's hardly common knowledge, is it? Thank you. Now, there may be problems once we're inside.
I'll say. How do I find the count? Once I do, how do
They're going to have to pull off some major bluffing work if they're going to get into the castle, much less fight everybody they're going to have to fight. Well, they come up with a plan that uses a lot of intimidation. Pretty clever plan. They dress Fezzik up and pretend he's the Dread Pirate Roberts, even using a special cloak that allows him to be safely set on fire. And it is very effective.
The great Pat Roberts is here for you,
So they make it into the castle, and Inigo finally gets to face the six-fingered man. Now, I said in part one, even if you've never seen this movie, you know this line. It's been used in so many memes, it's been referenced how many times in other shows, other movies. You're gonna know this line. And he finally gets to say it to the person he's been waiting to say it to for 20 years.
My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
Now, your first time seeing this movie, you might think, oh, gonna be an epic sword fight. They're finally gonna face each other. This is gonna be awesome watching the two of them clash swords. But Count Rugen is a terrible coward. So that's not how this scene is gonna play out. With Rugen being the coward that he is, he's not going to fight fairly. He has a knife hidden on him, and he throws that at Inigo before Inigo can get close enough to actually fight him in a fair duel. And it is not something that you would expect Inigo to be able to recover from. Well, things are looking really bad for Inigo. Meanwhile, Buttercup can't face life being Humperdinck's wife, so she's about to take drastic measures. And as serious as this scene would normally be if it was played out any other way, you can't help laughing at how Wesley stops her, the remark he makes when he first sees what she's about to do. Not exactly your typical response to this situation, but this is The Princess Bride. It's gonna make you laugh.
There's a shortage of perfect breasts in this world. It would be a pity to damage yours.
Wesley! Oh, Wesley, darling!
Back with Inigo, we all expect, if this is your first time seeing it, that that's the end of the fight. He's been beaten. But he wasn't kidding when he said Montoya doesn't give up so easily. After 20 years of waiting for this moment, he's not just going to accept defeat. He keeps repeating what he's been thinking of these past 20 years. Just keeps saying that same phrase he prepared again and again. And that gives him the strength to get back in the fight, which is pretty dang awesome.
Killed my father. Prepare to die.
Mandy Patinkin does such an incredible acting job playing Inigo. But there's a bit of sadness behind how he got into character for this one particular moment. He'd recently lost his own father to cancer. And when he was playing Inigo, fighting this scene, for this final moment of the duel, he envisioned Rugen as the physical embodiment of the cancer. Now, knowing that gives a whole new meaning to the way this moment plays out. One heck of a way to get in character thinking of something that sad, but the results were incredible.
Hello! My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die! Now!
Offer me money. Yes. Power to promise me all that I have and more. Please. Offer me everything I ask for. Anything you want. I want my father back, you son of a bitch.
That has got to be one of the most satisfying revenge moments in movie history. Now, Humperdinck comes in, finds Buttercup and Wesley, and he proposes a duel to the death. But Wesley has an even better idea.
To the death. No. To the pen. I don't think I'm quite familiar with that phrase.
It never actually gets to that point, but Wesley explains it's going to involve cutting off parts of Humperdinck, one at a time, starting with his feet, then his hands, and so on, but leaving him where he's alive and disfigured, with ears yet so that he can hear people's reactions to him. Well, Humperdinck is as much of a coward as Rugen was, so it never gets to that point. Wesley's able to bluff him, and when he does, he simply has Buttercup tie Humperdinck up. Easy enough. He doesn't actually kill Humperdinck, but he figures leaving him alive is an even worse punishment.
Let's see.
Time up. Keep it as tight as you like.
Oh.
With this being a fairy tale, of course, they're going to ride off into the sunset, or sunrise in this case, since it's going to be morning soon. Fezzik had the right idea by bringing 4 horses. Horses are always a good thing. So they're able to make their escape, and I gotta laugh at his little hello lady. I don't know why, but just the way he says that line makes me laugh.
Prince's table, and there you are, 4 white horses. And I thought, there are 4 of us. where we'll find the lady. Hello, lady.
Earlier in the movie, we learned Dread Pirate Roberts is not actually a person. It's a role that has been handed down from one person to another. When one pirate gets rich enough or gets what else they want in life and they decide they want to retire, they choose a worthy replacement and they pass the role on to them. Well, Wesley has what he wants now. He has no reason to be the Dread Pirate Roberts anymore. And he has found the perfect successor. And I love Inigo's reaction, like, hadn't thought of that. That might be a good idea. And, he's probably going to go for it. And I think that's really going to be a great life for Inigo after all this time looking for revenge.
You know, it's very strange. I have been in the revenge business so long. Now that it's over, I don't know what to do with the rest of my life.
Have you ever considered piracy? You make a wonderful Dread Pirate Roberts.
So they make their getaway, and at the start of the story, the little boy who the story is being read to was against all the kisses and the romance part. But by now, he's actually gotten to like it, to the point where he asked his grandfather to read about the last kiss.
What? What?
Nice kissing again. You don't want to hear that.
Oh, I don't mind so much.
Okay. Since the invention of the kiss, there have been 5 kisses that were rated the most passionate, the most pure. This one left them all behind.
That concludes the book that the grandfather was reading. And there's one last really sweet moment. Given the context of what the phrase "as you wish" means within the story, we know that Wesley uses it as code for "I love you." It is so heartwarming to hear the grandfather say this. There's a lot of ways to say "I love you" without actually saying the words. And this moment especially, it reminds me so much of reading with my own grandpa and the bond that we had. It is just one last final moment of heartwarming, and I absolutely love it.
Grandpa? Maybe you could come over and read it again to me tomorrow.
As you wish.
So that concludes my review of The Princess Bride. And I still had to leave out so many little moments. That's really what makes this movie. There's so many little magical moments in it. It's funny, it's heartwarming. There aren't many movies that can be called perfect, but honestly, I can't find any real flaw in this movie. I hope you've enjoyed these 2 review videos on it. If you haven't seen this movie, do yourself a favor and check it out. I guarantee you're going to love this one. And until next time, remember the magic.